Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to this special broadcast brought to you by Myriad360. This is a LinkedIn live broadcast, so if you're watching us live on LinkedIn and not on rerun, you can write in the comments section, and perhaps our panel can answer some questions. But what are they going to speak about? Well, if you joined us a few weeks ago, you'll have heard that we were speaking about the RSA conference and some of the trends that we saw at RSA and some of the predictions for the future. Well, RSA has been and gone, and what has come instead? Well, of course, the Gartner Security and Risk Management Summit. So we had 3 people from Myriad360 at the event, and they are going to talk to you now about some of the trends that they saw, particularly in cybersecurity, and some of the security measures which they've seen and the trends that they've seen to bolster your organization. But that's enough from me. I'm delighted to be joined by my 3 guests today. I have Al, James, and Angie. Everyone, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Well, it's great to have you here, and in a minute we'll talk about the Gartner event and what you saw. But let's just do a really quick round of introduction, and I will start with who was on that side of me. I will start with Al. So Al, over to you.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Andrew. So Al Shah here, VP of Cybersecurity Solutions at Myriad360. I run the cybersecurity practice. I've been with Myriad for 5 years and in cybersecurity for almost 20 years.
Excellent. James?
Thank you. James Cassata here, Cloud Security Architect with Myriad360. I've had the pleasure of serving the firm for almost a year and a half now, and have been in cybersecurity for 10 plus years. Back to you, Andrew.
Fantastic. And finally, Angie?
Hi, thanks, Andrew. Angie Brantley here. I've been with Myriad360 for a little over a year now, and I'm serve as the sales director for the South region for Myriad. I've been in cybersecurity for about 7 years now.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Okay, so the Gartner event happened. Now, most people in the technology industry or associated with the technology industry know about Gartner. They know that they have these events, and within them they have very technical sessions. It can be very informative, and sometimes they can bring some surprises, which I think we're going to speak about later. But let's just talk about your experience at the event. When you went to the sessions, did you think there were any highlights this year?
Sure. So let me start with this. So Gartner is a conference, and specifically the SRM, that happens around June, in National Harbor, Maryland. This is an event I always look forward to. I've been going for the last couple of years, and I really enjoy the event. The reason being is that you end up meeting a lot of good, prospects, a lot of good clients who are the decision maker, who really talk about their pain points, and that's something really very important for us as a partner to understand. That's one thing. Second thing, we really learn so many good things from the Gartner analysts who really present their experience and what they have seen in the industry over the last 12 months, but also over the what to expect in the next coming years to from in cybersecurity. And then the other thing is, like, we also end up seeing a lot of new vendors and what different solutions and products that they are coming out of the market. So putting all those 3 different variety of parameters together, to me, this particular conference is very, very valuable.
Yeah, I would say for me, I mean, the highlights of the show, really, like Al, I really enjoy going to the Gartner Summit each year. I look forward to it. I think there is just a ton of valuable information and insights that can be gained from the conference. A few of the highlights this year I really enjoyed. They had several sessions around, what are the current trends and what are the trends to look out for in the coming year in cybersecurity. I thought that was really interesting. And also, there were a lot of sessions on DevSecOps, which I think was really interesting, and the aspects that CISOs should be aware of generally. Those are a couple of the sessions that really stood out to me.
What about you, James?
Yeah, it's just to double click on some of those analytical sessions. One of the things that I appreciated the most about my time at Gartner this year was to gain insight not only to what some of these newer vendors are doing in the information security space, but is to also understand what some of the Fortune 100 companies are doing to combat latest threats, stay ahead of the curve, and ensure that these malicious attackers are staying out of their environments. And that level of insight you really don't get unless you've got that opportunity to engage with folks that work for those organizations.
Oh, well, that's great. So, look, you obviously got a lot from the event. Now, we'll go into some of the topics in a minute, but of course, what I want to know about before anything is keynotes, the big parts of these. Were there any keynotes that you saw that particularly resonated with you that thought this is what I really wanted to see?
I can take it, and I think I'll give it to James because he has some other insight as well. But the first day keynote as well as the second day keynote, those two keynotes were very well informative and valuable for me. A lot of lessons to learn from the first day. Second day was more about uh, a personal growth perspective, and also like how do you really manage yourself in a very dynamic, ever-changing cybersecurity industry, but still remain focused. So yeah, we definitely are going to talk about the second day, but the first day we're very much focused on three different areas of cybersecurity, which is very valuable from a perspective. Is one, cyber resiliency; two, cyber augmentation; and three, minimum effective tools. I found the way the information was shared and the two individuals from a Gartner's and a team who were talking at this stage about their experience, their interaction with the clients, and what they believe based on their experience that one should be paying attention in those areas. So I thought that first day keynote was very informative and very valuable. James, you want to add to that?
Yeah, certainly, Al. So I too found that first day keynote to be very impactful and informative. One of the things that specifically stood out to me had to do with the way that the organizations and the manufacturers are looking to augment the way that staffs work day to day, leveraging AI. Of course, AI is a huge buzzword and a hot topic, but the way that Gartner had gone through and explained the approach that they believe manufacturers are going to very thoughtfully implement AI LLMs to be able to assist, frontline workers all the way up to the CISO level with understanding, how incidents are occurring, how to triage, respond, and react to those. Was very insightful. Again, especially as a lot of these manufacturers learn to build out these products and solutions in the next few months and years.
Yeah, and Andrew, if I can double click on that part also, like a little bit more on the cyber augmentation part of it, correct? What I think we heard from the a lot of analysts as well as the clients is the fatigue that is happening in the cybersecurity leaders around the various organizations, because no matter what you do, is always something new threat is popping up, and you are always like trying to like a whack-a-mole kind of a game to really thwart those threats. So to that point, the cyber augmentation is all about like, hey, abandon the zero tolerance for failure approach. Don't have that mindset that, hey, you should not be failed. I mean, if you fail, you learn from it and try to improve. That was one of the big message that I think I walked away in that keynote, is that making sure that you have the approach of not just have that, hey, I cannot accept the zero failure. And because you have that mindset, they try to have the fear and not disclose certain things that happens in the organization. So have that mindset of, yeah, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn from that failure. So make sure that you do have that approach. And the resiliency is that because of that approach of not having the zero tolerance failure, let's make sure that you build the resilient framework with a defense in depth. So those two were very important takeaways from the first day keynote.
Yeah, Al, just to add to that, I would say, speaking along the lines of embracing the failures, one thing that really stood out to me was how they were saying, it's not a matter of if you will get breached, it's a matter of when. When an event happens, and it's going to happen to everyone eventually, what is your resiliency? What is your response? And embracing those failures, just like you said, learning from the failures, not trying to hide those, but rather promoting the failures and learning from them, and so that they don't happen again. And you can build that solid resiliency program and your response. You can build your response and be prepared when something does happen.
It's great. I mean, James mentioned AI, and now, of course, there have been big tech announcements this week around AI, and it really is something that everyone's talking about and companies are talking about. Did you find that AI was a big topic? And then maybe leading on from that question, just what people were saying, were there any other areas that quite a lot of people just were talking about during the Gartner event?
James, you want to take that?
Yeah, so the
Let's talk
one
about
thing that
AI.
I've really seen stand out as far as AI has to do with the staff augmentation aspect to it. The one statistic that I found to be very interesting that Gartner shared is that by the year 2028, they're stating that they believe that the threat detection and incident response abilities with multi-agent AI will jump from 5% to 70%. And that is a massive lift. And again, the benefit of that is to help first-line incident responders with understanding, is this a real threat? Contextualizing the information that's coming from these tool sets to understand, is this an isolated incident on one endpoint, one server, one device, or is it spreading throughout my network? And by leveraging these capabilities, it's going to allow folks to really reduce that mean time to detect from weeks to days or even hours, which is really going to greatly reduce the attack surface. Now, one could make the argument that alternatively, as we've got these AI tools coming out and providing this level of enhancement by 2028, these nefarious actors are likely going to be doing the same and leveraging AI in a malicious way to combat the efficiencies that we'll find on the proactive and defensive side. So to that end, I'm really looking forward to learning more from these manufacturers on the methods and processes that they will be employing to help organizations really bolster their security posture by introducing AI at this extremely heightened level by the year 2028.
So, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was to do with DevSecOps. Well, what was the conversations that are happening around that?
Yeah, so if I think I want to also just revisit like the sessions that you asked earlier, like Andrew, about the what sessions we like and how many. I was just reviewing like how many sessions are there this year on what specific topics and subjects, and I was just looking at it. It was pretty fascinating that AI was dominating. We all know that it will be, but it was very fascinating to see that more than probably 8 or 9 sessions were only on AI over the period of 2.5 days. What was also very interesting to observe is that uh, SASE, which is something we talk about all the time, zero trust we talk about all the time, there were hardly any more than 2 or 3 sessions between the 2 or 3 days on those subjects. So the focus on Gen AI and AI is really increasing. I think that is where and Gartner is putting those sessions, means they are seeing the kind of attraction in the industry, and because of that they schedule those sessions, correct? And DevSecOps, which is something that you just wanted to know more about, DevSecOps, we were seeing more and more sessions around DevSecOps as well, about 4 or 5 sessions probably, which I think I end up going to 3 or so around DevSecOps. So DevSecOps, AppSec is something really big out there, and we are seeing more and more conversations around that. One of the sessions that I really found very interesting, which I attended, on like what are the different pillars of DevSecOps and how do you go about attacking and managing in your environment, and learning from those sessions was very, very informative for myself, and definitely I've shared that coming after the session with my internal team here, and we are working together on how do we go to market and help the clients on engaging in those conversations, and also help secure with those 4 pillars of DevSecOps. So AI is everywhere, and how to bring the AI into the DevSecOps process is something that we will see coming down the road.
Awesome. Angie, did you see anything that wasn't just AI? I'm curious to know what else people were talking about. Can't just be
Yeah.
AI.
I mean, we definitely a lot of AI, a lot of DevSecOps conversations. The thing that I found really interesting was I attended a session on, a particular case study of how a company is implementing some of these practices, and also the trends around some of these things. Very interesting.
No, it's some of it's been fascinating, and reading about this has been fascinating. But one of the things that I think it was Alpesh mentioned was to do with generative AI. Now, if I asked, including myself, you asked a lot of people, they associate generative AI with ChatGPT, images and things like that. But you're talking about it in a cybersecurity perspective. How does this play into potential cyber attacks and risks?
So Gen AI is, and how to really make good use of Gen AI into cybersecurity is a everyday conversation. We are meeting with various vendors. In fact, I met many vendors, during the conference as well. And right now also, we are having conversation, around that subject every day. So one of the key things that I, took away from the conference on how to really use Gen AI in cybersecurity. So one of the things like use Gen AI in secure code development, making sure that you check your libraries and use the AI to verify that. Second thing, I was like, how do you optimize your SOC and make the use of AI to be more productive and more efficient using the AI tools? And then how to really make your entire DevOps and DevSecOps process more secure and robust using the AI tools. And then a certain area around DLP, which is always a concern for every day and every year that I've seen in Gartner and every other conference. How do you manage the data protection part of your environment using the Gen AI? So some of those use cases that I saw were discussed during the conference around the use of Gen AI in cybersecurity. One of the other one was also very interesting, which I think I attended the session, was utilizing the Gen AI for performing threat hunting. That's definitely the right use case in leveraging AI to be more efficient, more proficient in finding the right, kind of threats for your cybersecurity environment. So yeah, those are some of the areas where I see that Gen AI is going to be leveraged over the next, coming years in cybersecurity.
I mean, Myriad360 work with some enormous companies who, they'll be discussing AI with you probably on a daily basis. And of course, when you were at the Gartner event, what I heard, the same thing from the RSA event, was that a lot of people are talking about AI in terms of a defense. But, if I were looking at AI and thinking about AI, did you see people talking about AI as the threat as well, as in people using AI? So you're almost like in a bit of a conflict between keeping ahead of the curve, because I think, as Angie said, this when, not if sort of thing. Has AI causing problems in cybersecurity as well? And should people be looking out for that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So one of the things from like a business leadership perspective that folks have brought up and was very nicely echoed as part of the Gartner event, these organizations that want to leverage AI internally to find process efficiencies and enhancements are really struggling with some very consistent concerns that I not only heard at Gartner, but I've also been discussing with clients now for quite some time. And just to highlight a couple of these concerns, they include things like data loss, prompt injection, hallucination of the output that's provided by the language model, toxic output, as well as data poisoning. So some of the guidance that I found to be very timely and appropriate at Gartner is that security leaders really should be working with senior management to get answers to some of these questions. So if there is an LLM that's being used in-house for an organization, if the data is not AI ready, and it's a little bit dirty going into the model, how much hallucination can the business really tolerate in finding value from that AI model being used day to day? Secondarily, what alternatives to this AI model are available? If this solution doesn't work out the best, what would be the next thing to pivot to ensure that there's a backup strategy in place? And as well, what are the switching costs to do so? Building out these LLMs and getting them tuned the way that it's needed is not a quick and fast task, and there's likely to be significant costs associated with the compute time and processing required to do so. And last but not least, if something goes absolutely awry, is it possible for the organization to pull the plug to prevent any further damage from being done? So our recommendation is that for organizations that are looking to leverage AI to find those business enhancements, they think through some of these questions and define the answers to very thoughtfully and proactively put AI into place to prevent having to pull it out and being in a disastrous situation.
Great answer. Love it. Okay, so right, we'll come back to this, but I saw online, I saw that a certain Bear Grylls was at the event, as you can see here, kindly provided by Alpesh. Whoa, what did Bear have to say about this? Why is Bear at a Gartner conference?
Yeah, it was fun to see him, by the way, and it was fun to also and very fascinating to hear about his background, his story, and everything. It's very fascinating, very inspirational as well. He talks about 4 Fs, and I would like rather have Angie talk more about it because she was pretty good in talking to us when after the keynote as well. But that story from Bear and how he was elaborating his story with those 4 Fs and how you as an individual can conquer those 4 Fs to be more successful as a individual, as a leader, is something that I walked away from that keynote.
Yeah, Al, I would say, in that keynote, the thing that resonated with me, and the common thread that we saw, we mentioned failures. In the first keynote, the first day, they talked about failures, embracing your failures. And then in Bear's keynote, he talked a lot about, in telling us his story, he talked a lot about all the failures that he's had in his life and how he's been able to learn from those failures and leverage those failures just to further himself and go further. So he talked about, as Al mentioned, the 4 Fs. The first one was failure, and he talked a lot about that. And I think that was a common thread throughout the conference. No longer are we in a place where we can have a zero failure tolerance. We have to, embrace those failures because we're all going to have those at some point. And so Bear talked a lot about that in his keynote. The second F was fear. He talked about how, he has a great fear for a lot of things. I mean, he seems fearless on TV when you see him in his shows and all of his excursions, but he has a lot of fears and he has to face those fears head on and conquer those fears. And he uses that to create what he called the third F, which was fire, to create that fire, that passion to keep going and to succeed, and what is motivating you. And then finally, the fourth F is faith. Having faith in, he mentioned he has faith in a higher power, but just having the faith to learn from your failure, to face your fear, to have the fire to keep going, and then have the faith to carry on. So it was really inspirational. I enjoyed that particular keynote very much.
Beautiful. All right, well, great. Bear Grylls. So if you're just joining us, you're watching a special Myriad360 broadcast on the Gartner Security and Risk Management Summit. I have my 3 experts, and I'm going to ask them now about case studies. So one of the things that comes up at events, people don't always talk about, case studies. I believe this is a question for you, Ange. Did you see a particularly interesting case study that you want to share with us?
Absolutely, we did. So the CISO for Collins Aerospace gave a great talk. I thought it was very well done. So Collins Aerospace is an RTX business. RTX, for those of you that don't know, they're the world's largest aerospace and security company. And so Collins Aerospace is an RTX business, and the CISO of Collins Aerospace talked to us about how she built a very resilient program within her company. She said when she first came in, they had many challenges, like probably a lot of companies out there face. They had too many vulnerabilities in their environment they were trying to handle. too many end of life scenarios they were facing. They couldn't get a handle on all of the end of life they had within their tech stack. They were experiencing failed audits. No single risk profile existed, and they were very disjointed. They said a lot of these things, they had to put a program in place to really get a handle on some of these challenges they were having. So the solution that she proposed was bringing together remediation sources into a 2-tier program consisting of what she called Program Torch and Issues Management. So these two tiers of the program so Program Torch consisted of tiger teams for those very critical issues and things that they were dealing with. And then the Issues Management tier had systems owners where they would address certain aspects within their business. And overarching both of those tiers, they had a digital risk council that consisted of senior leadership, oversight, and sponsorship. And they also had CIO sponsorship and roll-up reporting, as well as CIO active oversight, and then an executive leadership team sponsorship and reporting to the board, which she said was absolutely critical for them. And the overall process that she described for how she put this program in place was they would take all of these various inputs that they had, like vulnerability management, penetration testing results, audit observations, incident response, end of life data, policy deviations. All of these inputs they would take, and they would identify specific issues they had, put those into a risk disposition phase, and then approval phase, onto execution, and then closure. She talked about how communication and reporting is key, which again is a common theme that I heard in several sessions that I attended, that it's so vitally important that the business is able to communicate to the boards what issues they're having, and communicate in a language that the board understands. So reporting is vital. It has to be transparent, concise, and precise. So they had, a separate set of board level reports where they used data to tell a story. They had leadership reports, and then they had working team reports that were very detailed that they would use. So the approach that she used was very interesting. And she talked about how, it doesn't happen overnight, but they were able to get their cybersecurity program to a place where they could address a lot of these upfront challenges that they had.
And Andrew, if I can double click on what Angie said as well, correct? So yeah, I was also with her, during that session. Very informative as she elaborated on the areas of sharing from the CISOs over there. But what was very also fascinating to hear that at Myriad we do something very similar. We help build the remediation program, including that end of life vulnerabilities, failed audits and whatnot, and really build that kind of a resilient program and provide the program management to our clients. So hearing from the client perspective that this is what they are doing with their team, but we as a partner can also augment that effort by providing our people and our services, is something very interesting. So yeah, I mean, at Myriad we do something very similar on helping the clients build that kind of a remediation program that includes the management, the communication, various documentations, the program management, whatnot. So if anybody on the audience side is listening here and having those challenges, which I'm quite sure you do have those challenges, because these are common challenges across every single enterprise. Collins Aerospace is not something new. So if you have those, come to us. We can certainly help you over there as well.
And you can speak to this great panel as well of experts. Well, as the experts, let's assume you're going back to Gartner 2025. So I will ask the question, you've got 12 months. What's going to happen? What trends, based on the Gartner that you've just been to, do you think you're going to see in the next 12 months, if you had to predict?
Yeah, if I were to take a gamble on that, the one thing that Gartner really highlighted is the significant gap that exists today, specifically in response and recovery controls. Given the fact that breaches have been on the rise at upwards of 72% since 2021, really indicate that organizations still have an opportunity to have a more robust process in place to respond and recover from incidents to ensure that a single breach doesn't bring an organization out of business due to the outages and revenue loss, etc. The one thing as far as trends that really stood out to me is the opportunity that folks have to embrace that non-zero failure tolerance perspective, and basically inverse that age-old approach of saying it's been 275 days since our last incident, and that being the goal, but to invert it to say it's been 3 days since our last incident, and we're probably missing out on opportunities to go through some lessons learned. And so, to me, what that really means or speaks to is that every single basic breach of security policy is an opportunity to identify an incident. So again, anytime that policy or your set of policies, have had a violation, is an opportunity for folks to learn and document internally what the process is, and that can be anything as simple as doing a routine sweep of an office and finding that someone's leaving passwords on post-it notes underneath their keyboard. And working with staff to provide those educational components on a regular basis is a very simple way for organizations to very proactively help folks understand what these policies are and how to meet them. So I think you sort of leverage that mentality of being proactive and trying to implement more things like routine tabletop exercises, training on your incident response policies, your disaster recovery policies, contingency plans, etc., to ensure that when something happens, you have the right processes in place to make sure you can make it out on the other side, and that you're constantly testing and challenging what you've got in place to make sure it's sufficient and it's staying abreast of the most common things that are changing on your threat landscape.
Some great predictions. That's great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. But look, we've had our predictions. You've looked at you've been to the Gartner event. You've heard things about AI. You've heard things about DevSecOps, supply chain. I mean, anybody that's out there that spoke that was at Gartner or have heard what you had to say. What do you think they would be saying to you at Myriad360 now?
So one of the things I think we touched a little bit in the beginning, Andrew, what I would like to touch upon again is on the first day of the keynote, correct? The third subject was minimum effective tools. And I think that is becoming a theme throughout, this year, that when we speak to our clients and whenever we met few clients when we were at the Gartner conference, is how to make the entire environment less complex. Just because you have a problem, you don't need to buy a new tool. And I think a lot of people do that, and that really adds more complexity. So how can you reduce your complexity by going with the less number of tools but get the most productivity out of it? And I think that is going to be another theme that we are seeing is tools rationalizations, reducing the vendor sprawl, whatever you want to call that, is something big on the top of the priority from a CISO perspective. And that is what we at Myriad are also targeting. We have that something called, visibility and control workshop, vendor sprawl analysis, sort of a service that really target that problem of the tool sprawl. And how do you really, make that into a more of a platform approach and get more out of less number of tools, but still be more productive, still be more, preventive in your approach, still secure your environment. That's what we can help, clients with. So minimum effective tools and how to reduce your sprawl from a various vendors and tools perspective is something at Myriad we can help as well. So that's another thing that I think we will be seeing in the coming future. But if I were to sum up all the various 8 predictions and some of the things that I think James already touched upon about the AI and how companies will be making the good use of AI in making integration with the various controls, making reducing the skill gaps is something that we will be seeing in the future as well. One of the things that I think I touched upon a little bit on zero trust. Yeah, zero trust, we didn't see a lot of conversation, but the prediction perspective that many organizations probably will reduce the scope of their zero trust. They will probably not include any physical assets, that are part of the, retired OT network or something like that. So that was pretty interesting kind of a prediction to, see from Gartner. DLP and insider risk, which is something, a theme that I see every year over year. And it is still coming up this year as a prediction that we will be seeing more insider risk priority and more of a data leak. We at Myriad360 can really help you build a program from a data risk and governance perspective from scratch. Very, very important. Understanding your policy, process, procedures from an administrative controls, and then what are the technical controls that can align with those admin controls to make sure that you have a very resilient data risk and governance program. We can help you over there. And the application security, that was something big as well. We touch upon that. We at Myriad360 can help you build the entire AppSec program from ground up, and that is something our viewers can take advantage of that as well from a services perspective. And last one, which was very important for all the leaders out there, all the CISOs, that the exposure of CISOs with the legal part of the business, where now they will need to have a separate coverage from the cyber insurance that cover their legal exposure as the cyber leader in the organization. To me that was pretty interesting. I've never seen that before, but I think the industry will probably direct us what next to come. But I can see that the organizations will provide the additional coverage to cover the exposure of these their leaders, be it CISO, CIO, or other C-level directors in the organizations, to cover as part of the cyber insurance. So probably the cyber insurance industry will grow further, since they've been growing last few years. So yeah, those were some high level predictions that found pretty interesting during the conference.
Beautiful. Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Well, you have been a fantastic panel. Anyone out there watching, thank you for watching. You can find out more about Myriad360 at myriad360.com. You can continue to comment in the comments section below, and you can reach out to Myriad360 or someone from this wonderful panel. I would like to thank this wonderful panel, James, Al, and Angie. You've been great. Thank you for informing us on the Gartner Summit. Again, if you want to find out any more, speak to Myriad360, myriad360.com. Until then, I've been Andrew McLean, and until next time, goodbye.